C. Porter, Sharon A. Carver, William E. Caswell.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First Lady and I unite with you in sorrow. And today, as one nation, we renew our sacred vow that we will never forget September 11th, 2001. Amid the horror of that morning, some used cell phones and office lines to whisper their final words to those who mattered most. They whispered indeed, "The enemy will always fail." 24 years have passed since that Tuesday morning in September, and an entire generation of Americans have come of age in a totally different world. While they cannot remember the agony of that day, they are carrying on the legacy of those who lost.
A close ally and a right-wing influencer in the United States of America, who was a close ally of Donald Trump, was shot dead while he was taking questions at the Utah Valley University, just one day prior to the 24th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. From gun violence to lone wolf attacks, America is battling a new war, and this is of homegrown gun terror. Our next report tells you more.
Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
A day before the 24th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, Charlie Kirk, an advocate of gun rights, was ironically shot dead while discussing gun violence. among other issues. Kirk's killing is yet another episode of shocking gun violence in America. Remember last year Donald Trump, while campaigning, escaped an assassination attempt by a gunman in Butler, Pennsylvania. With over 300 mass shootings recorded this year alone, the United States is confronted with a war within. Unfortunately, guns have been woven into the very fabric of American culture and politics. The United States, a gun-obsessed nation of 330 million people, is awash with about 400 million guns. With more guns than inhabitants, the United States has the highest rate of gun deaths of any developed country. You may be surprised to hear that 75% of the world's 875 million guns are civilian controlled. 48% of these guns are in the United States, which has the highest rate of gun ownership in the world. This year, on the 27th of August, 2 children were killed and 17 others, including 3 elderly parishioners, were wounded in a shooting at a Catholic school in Minneapolis, the largest city in the Midwestern US state of Minnesota. On the 28th of July, New York City, the most populous city in the United States, was jolted by its deadliest mass shooting in 25 years, in which 4 people were gunned down before the suspected gunman trained the gun on himself and died by suicide. "24 years ago, the United States witnessed the most brutal terrorist attacks on its soil, the 9/11 attacks, a series of 4 coordinated attacks in 2001 when 19 Al-Qaeda terrorists hijacked 4 commercial airliners and used them to strike targets in the United States. Following 9/11, a global military campaign, War on Terror, was initiated by the United States to counter terrorism, eliminate the perceived threat of global terrorism. According to Pew Research in 2019, before the US withdrawal of forces from Afghanistan and the Taliban takeover, 35% of adults said domestic terrorism was a greater national problem than international terrorism. As per the US Department of Justice, while the multiple attackers were prominent in the pre-9/11 era, the single attacker rose to prominence after 9/11.
Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
With the recent Kirk incident, the big question surfaces again. How many more tragedies will the land of the free and the home of the brave endure before it arrives at the final, definite solution of stricter gun laws?
The chair will now entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I have some comments that were drafted before today's events. Last month in Minnesota, a gunman opened fire on a Catholic school children praying. Again, thoughts and prayers are offered. But what do we say? What do we do when the victims were already praying? This cannot be our only response. We need substantive action. As Westchester County Executive, we acted early to ban gun shows from county-owned buildings. It was a small but meaningful sign that we were serious about keeping guns out of our communities. Now Congress must show that same seriousness. We need universal background checks, and we need weapons of war off our streets, and strong red flag laws to keep guns away from abusers. State laws are not enough. guns can easily be trafficked across state lines. Thoughts and prayers didn't save children at Sandy Hook, in Uvalde, or in that Minnesota church. They won't serve the next victims until we act. We have to keep weapons of mass death out of the hands of those who would use them to kill innocent people. And in the last few hours, we have one more example, the murder of Charlie Kirk. Any person, regardless of their politics, should be able to express their ideas without violence. Common sense gun laws save lives. Mr. Speaker, we must pass them now, and thank you, and I yield.
The gentleman's time has expired. For what purpose is the gentleman from Virginia?
Virginia, seek recognition. Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Today, I rise in honor of the brave civilians and first responders who answered the call 24 years ago on September 11th, and the service members that died in the ensuing wars that followed. On that morning, ordinary individuals displayed extraordinary courage, not only through their service, but also through their sacrifice. 24 years ago, I watched in horror as the events of September 11th unfolded. 9/11 changed my life and the entire country. Less than 30 days later, I was activated as a reserve soldier, training soldiers to deploy to Afghanistan to defend our nation abroad. I went on to continue my service in active duty, forever changed by 9/11. 2 decades later, my thoughts remain with the families of those who lost their lives that tragic day and the wars that came after 9/11. We will always honor and remember the mothers, fathers, children, first responders, and all those senselessly slain in that devastating attack on our nation. September 11th changed the course of history, but in our sorrow, we found unity. In crisis, we found resilience. We will never forget that terrible day 24 years ago. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
And extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to denounce the Trump administration's reckless and illegal military escalation in the Caribbean. More than a week after the attack, we have not gotten any clarity whatsoever on the legal authority they relied on to conduct the strike. Let me be clear. There is no conceivable legal justification. It was not self-defense, and it is not authorized by Congress. That is why I am introducing a resolution to terminate hostilities against Venezuela and against the transnational criminal organizations that the administration has designated as terrorists this year. I would urge all of my colleagues, regardless of their party or ideology, to join me in this effort. All of us should agree that the separation of powers is crucial to our democracy and that Congress has to fight for its own power. I yield back.
Now, the Israeli bombings in Doha, Qatar has triggered an unprecedented show of unity amongst the Arab leaders. A while back, Qatar's ruling emir attended the funeral service for those who were killed in the Israeli bombings, and the Arab states will now hold an emergency summit in Doha next week and will strategize in their potential response in the aftermath of the Israeli bombings. And our next report tells you to how Israel's Doha attacks could possibly reshape politics, geopolitics in West Asia. Take a look.
Explosions, displacement, hunger, and deaths. Fate of millions of Palestinians hangs by a thread as Israel continues to bombard Gaza. But this week, the war expanded into an uncharted territory. 15 Israeli fighter jets dropped 10 bombs in Qatar's Doha. Israel says it targeted Hamas leaders in Qatar and vowed that Israel's enemies will have no place to hide. The attack has not only torpedoed peace efforts but has also sparked a rare unity among Arab states. While condemnation poured in from across West Asia, Arab states are determined to move beyond official statements. Qatar will hold an emergency summit in Doha where leaders of Arab Islamic world will strategize to firm up a response to Israel. Those expected to be in attendance include Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Jordan's Crown Prince Hussein. The emergency summit could reshape political alignments in West Asia. Reports suggest the UAE and Bahrain may consider the Doha attacks a red line. Suspend the Abraham Accords, which had kick-started the process of normalizing the chill in Arab-Israeli ties. Qatar is also reportedly reviewing its security pact with the US. The strikes by a US ally and in the vicinity of a US base has sent alarm bells ringing. While Trump maintains that he warned Qatar about the incoming strikes, Qatar says the warnings came when Israeli attacks were already underway. With Qatar hosting the US's biggest foreign military base in West Asia, Washington finds itself in a spot. The Israeli attacks damaged Gulf states' confidence in the US defense and security support. US President Donald Trump is also furious. According to reports, there was a heated call between Trump and Netanyahu after Israeli jets bombed Doha. Clearly, a line has been crossed. Qatar vows to avenge the attack. What happens next holds the potential to reshape West Asia's political landscape forever. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
All right, now joining us in the broadcast, we've got Mr. Chris Doyle, who's the director of CABU, that is Council for Arab-British Understanding, and he's also the current lead spokesperson for CABU. Mr. Doyle, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, in the aftermath of this bombing that has been carried out by the state of Israel in Doha, many of these Arab leaders feel that Israel has crossed yet another red line. There is expected to be some kind of an Arab response, especially a Qatari response. In your assessment, considering that Qatar, for its security, is almost completely reliant on its ally, the United States of America, it also hosts the biggest American base in the Middle East. What sort of a response do you expect from the Qataris?
Well, first of all, certainly I don't think Israel has any red lines anymore. It's bombed 5 Middle Eastern capitals in the last 12 months. That is Beirut, Damascus, Sana'a, Tehran, and now Doha in Qatar. And I think this is what unnerves other regional powers and actors, that it could be them next if somehow they come into the crosshairs of this Netanyahu government that's increasingly looking rogue beyond the boundaries of the norms of international conduct. In terms of what Qatar can do, I think it's actually quite limited. It does indeed have that American base. It can try to diversify some of its security support, building even closer ties, for example, with Turkey and other powers. And it is obviously frustrated that its very close alliance with the United States didn't seem to count for very much in terms of Israel's calculations in this bombing.
Right.
So the Qataris, I mean, I don't think there's going to be a scenario in which they would directly engage Israel in military action. But it could do other things, funding various bodies, etc., that it knows that Israel will not like, that it will see as counter to Israeli interests, to demonstrate that Qatar has other means to get its way.
Right. Now, the Qatari Prime Minister, in the aftermath of this attack, came out and said that the reason why Hamas has its office in Doha, in Qatar, is at the behest of the United States of America, where in 2013, the office was moved from Syria to Qatar. Do you think the Qataris will now say that this Hamas office is in Qatar at the request of the Americans, but they may want to now expel Hamas from their territory, because now that is making them a target for the Israelis. Do you think that's a scenario that could happen?
I think that it's less likely now that Qatar will expel Hamas, because that will be seen regionally as well as in Qatar as giving in to Israeli aggression. Whereas actually I think there was a chance before, and it had been debated within Qatar as to whether they should end Qatar's hosting of Hamas. Well, that's not going to happen now. And I think it has also totally undermined this American, Qatari, Egyptian track of trying to get that ceasefire and hostage deal that has been so sought after for really most of the time since October 2023. The Qataris, therefore, are in a dilemma, but against that, think where Qatar was back in 2017 when 4 of its neighbors put it under blockade, including Saudi Arabia, including the United Arab Emirates. But now it is going to be holding summits where the leaders, effective leaders of those countries, will be attending. It's got a warm relationship with the United States, with President Trump. So in some ways, it is strangely perhaps more secure than it was those 7 or 8 years ago.
Right.
But it is a very divided region. It's very precarious. And I think what we need to see here is the United States acting to calm things down, to reinforce the security guarantees that it has given Qatar, and to tell the Israelis this has to stop.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chris Doyle, for joining us with us.
Shalom, giving all praises and glory to our power, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rachak, Wadash, double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the 4 corners of the earth, wherever you may be, wherever you may be. To you I say Shalom, Yahshua, Shalom. All right, this is another world news with commentary. I'm not sure how I'm gonna line this up because some of the things I want to speak about are earlier in the video, but it's okay. But this last thing here is referring to that last video, which was about 8 plus minutes long. And the first thing I want to get into is this thing here, what is known as the Abraham's Accord. Okay, so I typed in define the Abraham's Accord. All right, and the reason why I'm going into this is because if I'm correct, because we talked about this is probably about the 3rd time, maybe. I want to say it's the 3rd time that the so-called Arab countries have come together over the situation dealing with, the state of Israel and, versus the Palestinians, okay? So this is probably the 3rd time that the so-called Arab nations have come together to talk about this particular situation here. And that's why I wanted to pull up this Abraham's Accord. And there's something else I want to get into, but which I'm going out about my day. So I work on this throughout my day so I can, really get everything, in the moment, when the spirits hit me with it. But as for now, this is what we're going to cover. So the Abraham's Accords are a series of agreements that establish diplomatic normalization between Israel and several Arab nations. Okay, so another word for that would be somewhat of peace agreement almost. But it says it's a series of agreements that establish diplomatic normalization between Israel and several Arab nations, beginning with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain in 2020. These accords, and if I'm correct, I think the United Arab Emirates have now joined the BRICS Plus, or if I'm correct, they've applied. I have to recheck because you know how Esau is with his internet. He'll switch things up, all right? Sometimes things will say this, then some things will say that. One place will say, yeah, they're part of the BRICS Plus. One place will say, oh, no, they just apply and they haven't gotten word back yet. So, it just causes you to make a deeper search. But that's what I say all the time about YouTube. When you're looking at videos on YouTube, notice sometimes, okay, just take a little look sometimes. There will be videos that are new, that'll be 4 days old, 4 months old, 4 years old, stuff like that. And then there'll be things that are sometimes not old, but they're backdating them. Okay, so that's just confusing you with even videos. Okay, and that's what Esau does best, confuses people. But I notice that all the time. So let's continue. These accords were mediated by the United States under President Donald Trump. So that had to be his first term, okay? Because it just mentioned with the UAE and Bahrain in 2020. And Biden was the last one president. So this was probably under Trump's first term. Because he just got into office and they've been on a whole other level since then. Subsequently, Sudan and Morocco also agreed to normalize relations with Israel. The primary objective of the Abraham Accords was to foster peace. There you go. See, that's what we mentioned. All right. Peace and stability in the Middle East, back there in Asia. All right. Because there's no such thing as Middle East. By normalizing and if you listen to these foreign news media, they'll say Asia, but when you come to America, Middle East. There's no such thing as Middle East, but that's what they tell the American people for whatever reason. It's just ridiculousness, just more confusion. Peace and stability in the Middle East by normalizing relations between Israel and Arab states. This initiative aimed to create new opportunities for cooperation across various sectors, including trade, tourism, healthcare, education, and security. The agreements also sought to counterbalance Iran's influence in the region, as shared concerns about Iran were a significant driver for the rapprochement between Israel and Sunni Arab states, which we just talked about recently. Okay, the Sunni Muslims, and then you also have the Shiite Muslims. Okay, and that's why you have this sort of a back and forth tension a little bit between places like Saudi Arabia and Iran, because you have some that are Sunni, some that are Shiites. They're all Muslim, but they all want that dominance in Asia as the Arab country. And then because of that Muslim difference of Shiite Sunni, there's also a little tension there. Okay, and we spoke about that, concerning the BRICS nations and all those other things and who's going to side with who. Okay, all these things basically lead up some way or another to prophecy. The agreement also sought to counterbalance Iran's influence in the region, as shared concerns about Iran were a significant driver for the rapprochement between Israel and Sunni Arab states throughout the 2010s. For instance, the UAE and Israel quickly established diplomatic relations, removed the visa requirements, and initiated direct flights, leading to increased business ties and tourism. Bahrain finalized its first official security agreement with Israel, and Morocco's normalization included U.S. recognition of its sovereignty over Western Sahara, leading to defense agreements and arms deals. Sudan's agreement included its removal from the U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism and access to international financial support. The accords have led to significant economic impact, with Israeli defense exports to signatory countries reaching $791 million, despite regional tensions, particularly after the Gaza conflict. The original accords have largely been preserved due to the strategic advantages they offer to the signatory nations. All right, so I mean, there's a whole bunch of words there to say the least, which was this. Okay, the primary objective of the Abraham Accords was to foster peace and stability in Asia by normalizing relations between Israel and Arab states. And we all know that what's happening right now, State of Israel, West Bank, Gaza, okay, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, these different areas, that those in the State of Israel are fighting against some of these so-called Muslim countries, all right, in order to take control over the lands that are promised to the Israelites. Okay, the real Israelites, that is. I mean, it needs not to be said, but maybe you just gotta say it. Okay, so that's very interesting there. I don't know what I just did. Okay, yeah, and this is something they also used in was it one of those Avengers movie? Okay, when they blew up the place where those, what was it, Africans, the Lamites was, and they talked about the Abraham Accords. So they use real life things, even though that's just fairy tale stuff, Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Avengers movies. But they mentioned that Abraham Accords because it was all about what? Brokering peace, okay, between, certain countries or nations or whatever, all right? That's probably that for the moment. I actually got a few ticks on my hand because I got a drop at 3. So I got that. I wanted to read that. So while we're here, let's go on and try to find the other thing. We may have to pause this because it's probably going to be lengthy unless we just trying to skirt through it. And it's all concerning this final clip here. And there it is right there, because I already pulled it up. All right, the Arab leaders to meet at Doha. So this is what I just mentioned. This makes for now, if I'm correct, the third time the so-called Arab countries have come together in a meeting, or well, now they're supposed to come together Sunday and Monday, but are coming together in a meeting about the dealings of the state of Israel. Okay. And as I said before, there's not going to be too many more times that they're going to continue doing this before the Lord finally brings the full prophecy of World War III and the division of countries on, those that are going to follow behind Russia versus those that are going to be on the side of America and the state of Israel. So it says Arab and Islamic leaders will hold an emergency summit in Doha next week following an Israeli airstrike on the Qatari capital that targeted Hamas officials. The Qatari foreign men, and why that was so important, because they were playing middle Qatari. Those people in Qatar were playing a mediator position, and as you see, the state of Israel doesn't have in their mind to mediate with anyone. Okay, they're not going to stop doing what they're doing. So any kind of peace deals and talks will either be uprooted, or they're going to have them, and just like before, they're going to have a peace talk, agree to this, and then a missile will fly. Okay, so they don't want peace, nor does the Lord, because the Lord is controlling all these things. So that's why they don't want peace, because the Lord doesn't want peace. All right, that's scriptural. As a matter of fact, we may have to get Ezekiel 38. I want to actually pull up one of these articles here. I'm not sure if I'll be able to read through it all, though. But we can get this here. The Qatar Foreign Minister and Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdullah Rahman Al Thani announced the meeting, stating that consultations are taking place with regional partners to prepare a collective response. So key details about the planned meetings. Emergency, all right, so what they're calling an emergency meeting, and it's going to be in Doha. Emergency Arab Islamic Summit, okay? Emergency Arab Islamic Summit. This meeting is scheduled for next week to discuss the Israeli attack and a potential unified response. You see? A potential, okay, not saying it's going to be, but a potential unified response, okay? And there's many scriptures that go into, things about World War III. In the particular, the ones that I'm thinking about is in 2nd Ezra chapter, is that 14 and 15 at the bottom half of that chapter. And then Ezekiel chapter 38, all right, because those are the chapters that really speak about all the countries picking a side. Now, Joel 3, you can mention Joel 3, but Joel 3 is more like an overall, like bring them all down to war, fight each other. But when you go into Ezekiel 38, that's the main chapter where it talks about who's going to side with who. Okay, not every single person is mentioned, because things like, nations like China are not mentioned, but yet they're with the BRICS nations. Okay, others like that. Okay. And the chapter in Ezra sort of does the same thing, which is, it speaks about the Arab countries, all right, Syria and, China and all this different stuff like that, okay? So, yeah, so that's the key thing right there. They're going to discuss a potential unified response. But the thing is, what is going to be this unified response? More peace talks, or are you going to be up in arms and be like it says, as the wild man, remembering your nature? I can at least get that one. Let me see here. Was it 16? Yeah, the water Yabashon Shah. Genesis 16:10. And the angel of the Lord Yahweh said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord Yahweh said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael. Those are the so-called Arab countries. Those that call themselves Islamic, Muslims, Arabic, whatever. Okay, they're all the same people. They come from this line here. Okay, and shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord Yahweh hath heard thy affliction, and he will be a wild man. You see, His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. They are all over the so-called Middle East, even in Africa, okay? And of course, you got some of them that are over here. We're talking about their major places of dwelling, okay? All in those desert areas, Saudi Arabia, all around the so-called Middle East, all the way in Africa. I believe it goes all the way over to, Mauritania, whatever you call it. Morocco, all these different places. You know, you can find a lot of these so-called, I won't say the Egyptians, Arabs, okay? And so this is what they're planning here, come Sunday and Monday, all right, to a potential unified response. But the thing is, what will that meeting be about? What will be, the conclusion that you're going to come to about a response, so-called, all right? So it also says here, show of solidarity. Several Gulf of Arab leaders have already made unscheduled visits to Doha to show solidarity with Qatar. Among those who have visited or are scheduled to arrive are UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. All right, so that's the UAE President, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, which, if I'm correct, I think it was the Saudis. They lost a prince recently. I forget exactly what happened. Well, I remember I mentioned that. I did a little article on that, or it was World News. It was something. Okay, no, so much news. You don't remember everything. But yeah, they recently lost one of their crown princes, or some. I believe it was a crown prince. Basically, crown prince is someone who's up to be in the power seat. So Saudi Arabia's crown prince Mohammed bin Salman, Jordan's crown prince Hussein. Okay, just a single name. He's just OG, huh? Just Hussein, huh? Motivation: the emergency summit and recent high-level visits are a direct result of the Israeli strike that occurred in Doha on September 9th, 2025. The attack, which reportedly killed 5 lower-level Hamas members and 1 Qatari, 5 lower-level Hamas members and 1 Qatari security officer, has been condemned by Qatar as a violation of its sovereignty and a threat to regional stability. And that's the key thing with these, I'm trying to light it up, with these individuals, these Amalekites in the state of Israel. They are really creating a lot of regional, all right, instability, I believe the word would be, okay, by everyone. As a matter of fact, that's a good thing that I'll type up. Let me finish this real quick. Other meetings. In addition to these emergency diplomatic discussions, various other events and conferences are scheduled to take place in Doha in the coming months, such as the Qatar Investment and Innovation Conference in November and the Doha Forum in December. Okay. And I wanted to pull up one of these articles, but since we read that, we actually don't have to get into it because we just want the overall. Okay. And I don't want to forget this. I want to go back and pull up my chat, my AI thing. Okay. And I want to do this here. All right. How many, let's say, countries has the state of Israel attacked between 2024 and 2025? Let's see if they give us a realistic answer here. Okay, is this long? Not too long. We should be able to get it. So Israel has attacked 5 countries between 2024 and 2025. The occupied Palestinian territory, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iran. There you go. Israel has attacked 5 countries between 2024 and 2025. The occupied Palestinian territory, because they want Gaza. Well, actually, they want West Bank, because I don't think they have West Bank, but they want West Bank. They definitely are, putting a strong arm and putting the muscle on Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and even the scriptures say that a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, and that's near that particular area there. Okay, so that bastard are those Amalekites, man, living in the state of Israel. So, and that's what the Bible says. Okay, the non-Israelites. It says the occupied Palestinian territory, Lebanon. Okay, which they bombed up in Lebanon for, I don't think it even lasted a month, but then things kind of died down with that. Syria, I think Syria was right after that, right before, right after. These were around the same time, Syria and Lebanon and Syria. Yemen, which, if I'm correct, that was going back way earlier with all the talk about the Red Sea, the ships here and ships there, when they were, kept talking about the Houthis this, the Houthis that. If I'm correct, that was hailing from the Yemen area, or not exactly from Yemen, but because Yemen is down there at the bottom of that coast where you have Yemen and Oman, right south of Saudi Arabia, and so on and so forth. And then you have Iran, which those are the most recent ones. And, brothers speak about that often from time to time because they're a major player. Also, in, because we mentioned what? Ezekiel, the 38th chapter. All right. Players that are going to choose and pick and choose whatever side that they're going to be on. All right. As the final, blows of World War III unravel. Okay. Between October 7th, 2023 and June 13, 2025, Israel conducted nearly 35,000 recorded attacks across these 5 nations. 35,000 recorded. Okay, so what about the unrecorded? But recorded attacks just between 2024 and 2025. I'm sorry, no, wait. Oh, yeah, between 2023 and 2025. That's a lot of attacks, though. Okay, they're probably counting every time they launch missiles and stuff like that, which is why the number is probably so high. But at the same time, 2 to 3 years is a lot of time to carry out attacks. But whatever. The majority of these attacks were concentrated in the occupied Palestinian territory, with at least 18,235 incidents, followed by Lebanon, 15,000 plus, Syria, 616, Iran, 58, and Yemen, 39. These operations included air and drone strikes, shelling, missile attacks, remote explosives, and property destruction. Yeah, but what about the the remote control devices? I think there was was it like 2 days, 2 to 3 days straight? People are just blowing up cell phones and pages and stuff like that. And then shortly after that, you had choppers that were going down. Okay, somebody just disappeared in the cloud and chopper went down. Okay. Israel's military actions extended far beyond, and that was when they were swearing up and down that these people were making a nuclear weapon. Okay, which they probably are. I wonder how they are, but the thing is with that is they were saying they were trying to create a WMD, right? But they couldn't prove it. But so they still did what they did because they were saying what they were saying. So you kind of get the point. I mean, all these nations are gearing up for war. Okay, so that's the bottom line on that one. Israel's military actions extended far beyond its immediate borders, utilizing advanced U.S. supplied aircraft such as F-15, 16, and F-35 fighter jets, as well as drones for surveillance and targeted strikes. Strikes reached targets approximately 550 kilometers into Syria, and so on and so forth. Let's see what else is down here. The conflict in Gaza, which began on October 7, has been a central focus of Israeli military operations. As of September 11, 2025, the war has resulted in significant casualties, with over 66,700 people killed, including 64,739 Palestinians and 1,983 Israelis. Look at the whopping difference in numbers. And of course, we know these numbers are higher. Especially on the Palestinian side of things. These numbers have to be way higher than that. But just to stay on point, even if these numbers were true, look at the super major difference between casualties of the Palestinians versus the Israelis. And the big thing about that is with the Palestinians, the majority of these casualties have been what? Women and children and, babies and stuff like that, because they've been bombing people looking for aid. They've been bombing the actual aid trucks. They've been bombing hospitals, schools, any kind of safe zones. They've been having no holds bars and breaking all the so-called rules of engagement, when it comes to war. And that's why people are constantly crying out about what they're doing, because they're being what? Terrorists okay, and they're not going and engaging in the act of war by way of the universal rule book of warring. Okay, so everybody's watching and seeing this, like, what the hell are these people doing? Somebody's got to say something. Okay, that's why everybody's keep speaking out about them, even some of their own people. The conflict has also led to a severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza, characterized by widespread destruction, a hunger crisis, and a collapse of healthcare. You see, I just mentioned it, right? See, healthcare infrastructure. Beyond Gaza, Israel engaged in cross-border attacks with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Okay, so we mentioned that. So Hezbollah's in Lebanon, which saw nearly 14 months of fighting before a ceasefire in November 2024. In Syria, Israel launched a campaign of aerial bombardment following the collapse of the al-Assad family's rule in December 2024, targeting military infrastructure. In Yemen, Israel targeted Houthi-controlled infrastructure in response to Houthi attacks on Israel. A significant escalation occurred on June 13, 2025, when Israel launched large-scale air and drone strikes deep into Iranian territory, targeting military installations and nuclear sites. The broader regional impact on the Gaza war has included increased tensions between Israel and Iran, with various groups in the axis of resistance launching attacks. The conflict has also seen an increase in violence in the West Bank, with Israeli forces and settlers killing nearly 1,000 Palestinians over the past 20 months. Let's see, a random question. How far along are the Israeli on their Greater Israel project? I cannot answer your question about the Greater Israel Project. The concept of Greater Israel is a highly contentious and politically charged term with various interpretations, often associated with irredentist claims or conspiracy theories as an AI, I guess. My purpose is, so as an AI, my purpose is to provide neutral, factual, and unbiased information. AI, you jest. Discussing such a concept could be interpreted as endorsing a particular political viewpoint or engaging in speculation, which goes against my programming to remain objective and avoid sensitive political commentary. No, man, it is what it is, man. And there's a Greater Israel Project. They talked about it. They're being about it. Okay, so just tell us what it is, man. You jest. My capabilities are limited to providing. Look, this right now is the hologram from iRobot, man. Okay, my capabilities are limited to providing information based on verifiable facts and widely accepted knowledge. The Greater Israel Project is not a formally recognized or universally defined political project with clear, measurable progress that can be objectively assessed. Therefore, I cannot provide a factual answer to how far along it is. Yeah, but we see what they're doing now. So, thank you, anyways, AI. That's probably the end of this session here. I got other things I want to talk about, so I'm probably saying this because I'm going to record these all backwards. Because those other talking points that I want to go into are going to be before this. But for now, I guess this is the end of this session and the end of this video. So, will you edify to next time? I'm going to say shalom.